Yeah, here we go now, baby. Right back into the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Before You Bet. Aaron live right now on the Covers YouTube and X channels. If you're on YouTube, make sure you smash that subscribe button right down there. A lot of great content here on the Covers YouTube channel. So a great big show planned for you guys tonight. A lot of big games across the world of sports. We have a pretty good looking Thursday night football game going down in Seattle. The San Francisco 49ers, both teams kind of limping in to this game and in need of a W. Major League Baseball playoffs, we have two games here in the American League. The Tigers looking to close things out. The Yankees looking to close things out. Then in the second half of the show, Jake Butt will be here. A lot of big games in college football this weekend. We're going to rip through all of those, get his thoughts on a couple items in the NFL, and, of course, get his best bets of the weekend. Okay. If you guys want to participate in the show, very easy to do so. Hit up that live chat on YouTube, on X. What do you like tonight in the NFL? Sides, totals, props. Let us know what you like. Major League Baseball. Are the Yankees closing this out tonight? Are the Tigers going to close it out tonight? Imagine that. The Tigers going to the ALCS. It's starting to look pretty likely here. Love Joe Oz and Jingles picks. Let's go. Hope we find a couple winners here for you guys tonight. So speaking of Jingles, let's bring him in. The man with the sexiest smile in all of sports betting, wearing, is that a powder blue hoodie today? Wow.
I know. I'm blending in. I think your take on changing the format's starting to heat up, though, because that bye is not looking great. And I mean, has the NL, I think I saw a tweet yesterday saying since that format has established, I don't think a team on the bye has won in the NL, no?
Yeah, it's kind of like I have two minds with it. If you're blaming that on the reason why the Phillies lost or had the Dodgers gone out last night, or if the Yankees go on to lose, that's extremely soft. Every team knows the rules entering. Every team is playing under the same set of rules, but it is kind of silly that this round is just 5 games, whereas there's so much variance with baseball. They play a 162-game season. You win 100 games, win your division, and you can be out just like that. It should be a 7-game series, I think. So, we'll see what Major League Baseball ends up doing. But the Dodgers hung on.
The Tigers are going to start one starting pitcher for the entire series, right? That's it. They don't have a number 2 starter, and that's how you're going to decide a champion? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't like that. More on that later. So let's cover this Thursday night football. Then we're going to get into some baseball. Then we will say goodbye to Jingles, and we'll bring in Jake and cover all the big stuff here in college football. So let's get into this game in Seattle. 49ers in town. Rough start to the season for the 49ers. They have 2 wins, both on the home field versus the Jets and the Patriots. They've collapsed in some of these games in the second half. Meanwhile, the Seahawks really starting to get exposed here. They faced Bo Nix, Skylar Thompson, and Jacoby Brissett to open the season. Well, 3-0. Seahawks look pretty good. Nope. Crash right back down to earth. So, how am I betting this game? I'm going with the side and total. Jingles has a prop for each quarterback. I will get us started with the side. I like the 49ers. I think it's a good spot for them to get the train back on the tracks here. I will take them to cover as a 3.5-point favorite. So San Francisco has absolutely owned this matchup. 5 straight wins by an average of 15.2 points. Each of these wins has come by at least 8 points. So I think a good opportunity for them to get right here. As I said, Seattle starting to get exposed. A real cupcake schedule for them to open the season. Since that cupcake schedule, though, they've allowed 71 total points in 2 games, losing 1 game by 13 and 1 by 9 versus a very watered down New York Giants team on your home field. Just an ugly loss by them last week. So how are the 49ers going to do it? I think they're going to do it through the air. San Francisco, number 1 in yards per pass attempt this season, taking on a beat-up Seattle secondary. Tariq Woolen is out. Julian Love will be a game-time decision. I think the game sets up very nicely for Brock Purdy to pick them apart, just like Jared Goff did a couple weeks ago. Give me the 49ers to cover the spread. Speaking of Brock Purdy, you like him not through the air, but on the ground tonight.
Yeah, at the 12.5 on the ground, rushing over 12.5 minus 110. The carries are really starting to pile up for Brock Purdy. 19 carries over his last 3 games. Do worry slightly about the Mason fumble. I mean, it could correlate to maybe 1 or 2 more designed runs. but 16 scrambles versus 6 designed runs so far this year. Was looking to head over to covers.com, take a look at his prop page, jump over, see the man, MVP. Jared Hockman also on this. He pointed out this opened at 11.5, as high as 13.5 at some points. He's got 11 plus rushing yards in 8 straight games dating back to last year's postseason. So there's a lot to like. And he also brought up one of my favorite points in QB rushing points is that Seattle is a QB pressure team, top 5 in that market. So pressure, evade, rush, and gain yards. And I mean, you touched on it. Brock Purdy's been absolutely slinging it. So stay with the strength, keep him passing. And when you keep passing, you open up those scramble opportunities. Could be a one and done, and we'll do that. I mean, they haven't had to face a lot of rushing QBs, but Daniel Jones, 11 carries, 38 yards last week. And Bo Nix in the opener, 5 for 35. So let's get 13 plus, Joe.
Okay, I think it's going to be a fun game tonight. We have a total on the high end here, 49 points. And my bet on the total is Mick. I'm trying to add a little bit of suspense here, and he puts up the graphic. Come on, Mick. Producer Mick. Over 49 points for me on this one. Just teasing, Mick. No worries. Yeah, over 49 points. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Check out Seattle's defense here. They've allowed 936 yards in their last 2 games. Okay, you get worked by the Lions in Detroit. That's forgivable. But how about the Giants coming to town and Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Darius Slayton just tearing them apart? Each of those guys had over 120 yards. Just silly stuff. The 49ers, you know, there's some holes in this defense. I know I'm taking them to cover the spread here, but they've been average, or they've been bad against the pass versus fairly average competition so far this season. They're 23rd in yards allowed per pass attempt, despite playing teams like the Patriots, the Jets, who no one respects, and the Rams, who didn't have Cooper Kupp or Nakua. That's pretty bad. Then some real bright spots for each offense. San Francisco has been elite on third down. Maybe don't expect a whole lot of punting for them. And Seattle's been really good in the red zone. So if they do get in close, expect them to be able to put it in, avoid field goals, score touchdowns. So give me over 49 for the game tonight, Thursday Night Football. And I said you have a prop for both quarterbacks. You gave one for Brock. What do you like for Geno?
Let's go Geno under 36.5 pass attempts, minus 125. There are some 35s out there, minus 105. I don't know, look pretty similar in terms of price and value in that spot. But this is just an information bet. Lots of people have seen it already. Derek Hardy was talking about it on a release show for NFL Prop Picks powered by the Blitz yesterday, that there's a lot of talk with head coach Mike McDonald and OC Ryan Grubb about getting the run game going again, right? Getting Kenneth Walker the ball. And it's been talk all week. We got post-game talk, Mike McDonald talking about it. We got it on the Monday, Mike McDonald talking about it. We got it on the Wednesday, Ryan Grubb talking, we need to get Kenneth Walker the ball. And sure, everyone might be out first to run and go buy Kenneth Walker overs, but they're going to slow it down. And let's be honest, the pass rate at which Seattle has right now is not sustainable, especially coming off 2 losses. They're going to want to change things up. Our man, Geno Smith, 96 pass attempts over the last 2 games. I think they lead the league in pass attempts per game. That number is going to come down. San Francisco is only averaging their opponents 28.6 pass attempts. That is a big difference between this number. And through the list, we see Kyler Murray last week, 30. Jacoby Brissett, just 32 pass attempts. Indoors, which increases passing volume and efficiency. Matthew Stafford, 25. Sam Darnold indoors, too, 26 pass attempts. This number's priced heavily on just how Seattle's average pass attempt per game is, but with the change in philosophy, hopefully in this game, and where teams just have to pace a game versus San Francisco, I think this goes down.
Okay, that's it for Thursday Night Football. Of course, we're going to have a lot more coverage on the NFL on tomorrow's show. We'll have our usual avalanche picks for the Sunday day games and the night game, I suppose, too, maybe. Okay, let's shift gears over to Major League Baseball. So pretty good day of baseball there yesterday. 4 games. We saw the Mets wrap things up against the Phillies. We saw the Dodgers show some balls. The Yankees, good game by them. So just a couple notes or thoughts on each team jingle or each game jingles. Feel free to weigh in here. So Tigers and Guardians combined to use 13 pitchers yesterday. Effective, yes, but I don't find that very entertaining. I find it to be a bit of a tough watch when they're going to commercial every 5 minutes because they got to bring a new pitcher in. But like I said, it's effective. Tigers fans getting behind the whole pitcher chaos thing. But, you know, do you want to see that if we're in the World Series? 13 combined pitchers, a bit much there. So Tigers win that game 3-0. Guardians in a really tough spot here. Mets, Phillies, good for the Mets. Wasn't this supposed to be a reset year for them? It's kind of funny. Like last year, we see them get rid of Verlander and Scherzer, kind of admitting like, okay, we tried to go in too quickly here. But good for them. They move on. They come out of nowhere. They hit these. They have just these enormous moments, these big hits. Lindor yesterday. So good for them. Now, the Phillies were my pick to win the World Series. And I love these guys. I love the core of this team. I love Harper, Schwarber, all these guys. But Phillies fans, you can't do what you always do and blame the coach and the bullpen. Yeah, the bullpen was not good here during the playoffs at all, but who wasn't really good was the hitting. They needed the offense to carry them a little bit here. They had a 597 OPS in the 4 games in this series, 509 with runners in scoring position. Turner and Schwarber were awful at the top of the order, and it's been choke city for these guys in the playoffs. Going back to last year, they scored 2 runs or less in 5 of their last 6 games. So what would you do here, Jingles, if you're running the Phillies? You don't fire the manager. That's what the fans are calling for. I mean, you can fix some bullpen over the course of a season, sure, but these guys are just choking, right?
Yeah, because the rotation's really set up. You saw Ranger Suarez get real deep. Wasn't supposed to. Had an out total that opened at 11.5. He went real deep. He went 90-something pitches. I think he struck out 8. Like, if anybody hit his strikeout ladder yesterday, they're absolutely laughing today. But that's set up. Okay. And like you said, the easiest things to fix is the bullpen because the variance within it from year to year is crazy. So you can add that. The pieces are there. It really just comes down to 162 game season. It's come down to 3 losses when you have a bye through the wild card, right? Like you had Nola, right? You had Wheeler, you had Suarez, you had your big guns going, and it's just situational hitting that didn't turn out. And you saw yesterday in Kansas City too. I think they went 1 for 6 runners in scoring position. It just takes a big hit. I think the Yankees went 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. That's Stanton. I mean, that's kind of what it takes in those tight games. You're seeing it in the Detroit series. Like how someone, like, what do we say? I thought the Guardians were a steal, minus 125 for the series. So did I. I'm on them again today just because they're the better team. I get that, yes, momentum and everything is fantastic for Detroit. But they're seeing these relievers again for like the 3rd straight time over 4 days, right? These weren't the best relievers to begin with. So I think there's an edge with Cleveland. Cleveland's a better team. If they lose, that's fine. Philly, do you think Philly was a better team? I do.
Oh, yes, they were. They had like Sean Manaea, Quintana, these guys just pitching out of their mind here for the Mets. So maybe you could say the Mets are the better team right now, though. I mean, the Mets were the better team this week and in the series. They won the series in 4 games, right? But yeah, I don't know. Good for the Mets, like I said, but shame on the Phillies. Those guys aren't hitting. Speaking of Giancarlo Stanton, that's a guy I like to make fun of quite a bit. You know, he can be easy when you see him kind of jogging down to first base and, you know, an 80-year-old man could run faster than him. He did have a stolen base last night, though. But let's give this guy some credit. So at the end of the broadcast, they're wrapping things up, and they dropped this nugget on us on TBS. I trust that it is true. The only player in the history of Major League Baseball that has a better home run ratio in the playoffs than Giancarlo Stanton is Babe Ruth.
That's crazy.
Insanity. Giancarlo Stanton, timely hitting, man. Like, and he was, if you want to say MVP of that game, 100%. That was him. 3 hits.
Did Bob Costas say that? Did Bob Costas say that? I can't watch that series because he's insufferable. He's literally the worst baseball announcer.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you there. But Bob Costas did say it was really weird. Like they were talking like Stanton, hey, he won this game, great game, and Bob Costas has this weird thing. He's like, Stanton doesn't do a whole lot of things well anymore. He can't play the outfield. He's solely a DH. He doesn't run very fast. And he did steal a base. They gave it to him. But he does hit the ball very hard. It's very unusual. But, yeah, I understand the criticism of Costas.
He has no emotion. I hate him.
He's good for baseball. Okay, so we will agree to disagree there. But so Yankees up 2-1 in the series. It will be a massive choke of epic proportions if they cannot put away the Royals. They got their $300 million man, Garrett Cole, on the mound here tonight. So they should be able to put them away tonight. They're going to be feeling that pressure if they got to go back to Yankee Stadium, though. Aaron Judge, a postseason batting average of 203, 71 strikeouts in 47 games. He is not quite that bad, but he might be the Clayton Kershaw of hitting when it comes to postseason baseball. Just not very good. He's going to have to turn it on here at some point. And hey, let's give the Dodgers a little bit of credit here, guys. I came out yesterday. I took over on their team total of 3.5. I said the offense has to show up tonight and have some ball. Show us a little bit of guts here, guys. Show up. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to score 5-6 runs. Support your team. Bullpen game for the Dodgers. They win that game 8-0. Maybe a little bit of a choke by the Padres in that one. Now the Dodgers are going to be favored in game 5. I don't know if they named that it's either going to be Yamamoto or Flaherty going for them in game 5. So, Dodgers showed some ball, something they don't often do here in the playoffs. So, can't wait for game 5 tomorrow in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be a dangerous place, right? Like after games 1 and 2, it's going to be one certainly to watch. And thank God we don't have to listen to Bob Costas, who, as 10 Picks Kid says, he's like Al Michaels in football. Joe Buck is the best, and I agree with that too.
Al Michaels is having a good bounce back year on Thursday Night Football. He's had some pretty good games to call this year. I think that. Well, actually, no, that's maybe not true. But yeah, Al Michaels is having a good season. Leave Bob Costas alone. Can't wait to listen to him on the Yankees broadcast tonight on TBS with Ron Darling. Okay, let's get into these two games here. Then we're going to get into some college football. So you have one pick for Major League Baseball. You alluded to what it was. You told us what it was. You like the Guardians win, extend the series. Tell us what.
This is a spot where I have to keep backing Cleveland as the better team versus the bullpen. Like Detroit's going to go 13 pitchers. Like they could go 17 pitchers today. If they had a bullpen like that, they would be throwing 17 pitchers in there. Right? They get Tanner Bybee in there. They get their best ace. They still have the better bullpen. Yes, they haven't hit, but it's just a matter of getting through that. And as someone pointed out, I don't think they've scored in 120 straight innings, which is insane from Jigglypuff. Appreciate that. But Cleveland's better team. -125 ace versus bullpen day. This is a good number. Someone else said +390 for, where was it, for the price? Cleveland +300 to win the series. Yeah, that's probably the better price if you want to, because you're only going to get Cleveland -125 today, and then tomorrow or game 5, if they do win, would probably be even money or +105 versus Scooble. So take the money line rollover if you want, probably for better odds there. I don't believe in Magic. That's fine. And I've lost money betting against Magic, and lots of people have too. But at the end of the day, Cleveland is the better team, the better bullpen. Not going to say better managing, because Hinch is an absolute stud in that regards, but they got to pull through. And if I see Fry just throw the bat at the ball one more time, hitting in front of Jose Ramirez, hitting like a 1995 National League pitcher in the 9th spot, I'm gonna lose my mind. You gotta turn things over to Ramirez, because they're walking him. He's the only one they really worry about, and him and Naylor. So those two have to come through today.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, let's get this series over with. It's probably maybe go 5 games. How many pitchers did I say? 13 pitchers used yesterday. Give me a break. That bores me. Okay, my 2 bets for tonight in Major League Baseball. Tanner Bybee on the bump here for the Guardians. What do you know? A starting pitcher who might go more than 3 innings. So his total hits allowed number set at 3.5. I'm going to take the over on this at -125. So Detroit has hit him pretty good this season. 23 hits against him in 26.2 innings. Work, pull back, take a look at a bigger sample size. Lifetime, 93 combined at-bats for Tigers hitter. They have a 3.01 average against him. He has allowed at least 4 hits in 7 of his last 8 starts. Now, you might say, Joe, maybe not a traditional start here for him. It is the playoffs. I think he only threw 79 balls earlier in the series. That is true. And he might not throw 100 balls here tonight, but I think it's reasonable to not expect a quick hook for him after the Guardians used 6 guys yesterday. So maybe he does go a bit deeper. So I think the Tigers can get 4 hits against him. Next up, let us go to Kauffman Stadium, where they kept showing Patrick Mahomes. Did you notice that? They kept showing Mahomes up in this like it was Taylor Swift at a Chiefs game.
Screaming in Buddy's, the Yankees fans' face after they tied it up, and then he eventually lost. I just saw that clip. I thought it was embarrassing.
I had this thought too, and maybe a bit controversial.
Give it to me.
You know, you'd see Mahomes in the suite, and he's with his family. A lot of people, we don't have to discuss this. We probably shouldn't, but I'll just say this, and I'm going to get into
too late.
Patrick Mahomes' wife, not bad at all.
Oh.
We will leave it at that. Okay.
Hot take.
A lot of people can't stand her.
98% of America hates Mahomes. I think that's a Buffalo.
No.
That's a Buffalo thing. That's tough from a Buffalo fan right there.
Says a guy with the Buffalo avatar there, Bills.
98% of the AFC hates him. I get it.
Yeah. All right. My best bet for this game. I think the Yankees are probably going to win. Not in love with their money line price, so I'm going to look for. I think the best bet of the night, Garrett Cole over 4.5 strikeouts, coming in at -113 here tonight. So maybe a little bit of recency bias cooked into this one. He only had 4 strikeouts in game 1 of the series, but keep in mind here, 4.5. This ties a season low for Cole's strikeout total. That was earlier in the season when he had a 4.5 strikeout total versus Toronto. Went over that, by the way. Now he's been much better on the road this season. He's topped 4.5 strikeouts in 7 straight starts on the road, where he's been much better this season. A 2.49 ERA. He's averaging over a strikeout per inning pitched on the road. And a good track record here in his career versus this Royals lineup. He holds a career 31.5 strikeout percentage versus Royals hitters and 165 combined at bats. You like the Guardians to move on? Do the Yankees close it out here tonight?
Everything's so sweaty with those. Like yesterday, like Cobb done 9 outs, and you're like, come on, really, Voit? Like, and you worry like on those over 4, like over 3.5 hits. The 3's so low, right? Like you got Bibee they have to get Bibee deep. I get that one. I love that one. But Cole, like, could you imagine? Like, oh, there's your 4 innings, Cole. We're gonna go to the bullpen. You're like, you never know what managers are gonna do, especially in games where elimination is happening. So Stephen Voigt's never coached in this situation for the Guardians. So it's going to be very interesting how quick of a leash he has on Bibee. But I think the over 3.5 is a good play.
Yeah, Garrett Cole, get out there and earn those hundreds of millions of dollars. But the Yankees, like I said, they're going to be tight, man. If this goes back to Yankee Stadium for a game 5, it's a situation where the Royals will have absolutely nothing to lose. And I tell you guys, look at the body language of Aaron Judge whenever he's up there, the weight of the world on their shoulders here. It's not a must-win game, truly, but very, very important that they shut this down.
He thought he had a barrel the other day, and then Bobby Witt robbed him at shortstop. Like, he finally barreled one, and then that's just the way it goes. Hitting's contagious. If you've ever played baseball, hitting's contagious. When you're not hitting, everybody else isn't hitting. Just look at the Guardians. I mean, 20 innings is insane. Yeah. And once you start self-doubting yourself, you're in trouble. Like, just look at the numbers. The bottom of the order for the Yankees is hitting way better than basically anybody who's worth, I mean, not Soto, but Judge and Wells. So such small sample sizes.
Indeed. Okay, Jingles. We'll have you back tomorrow. We'll be going through our avalanche of NFL picks on the Mega Football Friday edition of the show. Probably going to have some baseball to discuss as well. So thank you for joining today. Best of luck with your bets tonight, and we'll catch you tomorrow.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Enjoy your day. Thanks for the chat. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Later, guys.
Indeed. Okay, so a monster weekend here coming up in college football. We got a lot of big games, a lot to discuss. Earlier today, I interviewed Jake Butt to get his opinion on everything going on in the world of college football. Mick, let's throw to that interview. All right, it is now time for our weekly conversation with our guy, former Michigan Wolverine, former Denver Bronco, current analyst for the Big Ten Network, our guy, Jake Butt. Jake, how are we making out today?
Couldn't be better, baby. Couldn't be better. Another weekend. We're at like that halfway point in season, man. I feel like some of these college games this weekend, they're going to be very revealing. You know, Oregon, Ohio State, of course, Texas, Oklahoma. Like, we're going to find out a lot about some of these teams this weekend.
Yeah, the season's absolutely flying. We got some massive games here this weekend. We're going to get into all of them, but let's discuss a couple topics here right off the bat. Let's start with the Heisman Trophy. We have a new favorite here, Jake Ashton Genty, at Boise State, and for good reason here too. He's averaging over 200 rushing yards per game, 16 touchdowns in 5 games. You know, I love a good mock draft. We were discussing this last week. He is expected to go in the first round of the NFL draft here in 2025. So how do you think he stacks up against other big-time running back prospects from recent years? Guys like Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, go back a little bit further. A guy like Saquon Barkley. How do you think he stacks up against the top guys at the running back position to come out of college and go into the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, you watch him run, and he's like, this guy is just a pure running back. Like, he's like almost like a classic throwback running back. Impossible to tackle. His balance and, you know, strength at the point of contact is maybe as good as, like, we got to think about like a Derrick Henry type, and Derrick Henry was a freak amongst freaks. He's truly impossible to bring down. And you even go back to some of their games earlier in the season. This has been consistent all the way through the year. And now I think his anytime touchdowns going off at something like minus 3,000 or minus 6,000. It's absurd, the hype train. Here's the issue. And it's not his fault at all. Running backs have been devalued by the NFL. And I think now, like, part of the reason Bijan Robinson goes in the first round, part of the reason Christian McCaffrey is so highly coveted and why the Niners traded to get him is his ability to affect the passing game. And I think right now what you see with Boise State is a team that's just saying, pass the ball. What do you mean? Let's just give it to Genty and just he'll make it work. That's going to be harder to do in the NFL. And I think that might be the difference between being a top 20 pick and an end of the first round pick. But certainly impact player, unbelievable talent, and he'll be fun to watch down the rest of the season here.
Okay, let's rehash the big story from last week. Of course, I'm talking about Alabama's upset loss versus Vanderbilt. They were favored by 23 points in that game. They never had a lead throughout the game. So I don't know. I call that like an extreme letdown spot after that massive win they had against Georgia the week before. So this week, they're going to be looking to bounce back. They're hosting South Carolina. They're favored by 21.5 points. So 2 questions. How do you think they bounce back? And how is the prep for this game going to be different? Or will it be different at all, considering they're coming off that massive loss?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You know, if it was Saban, I think I'd feel very comfortable, like, knowing what to expect prep-wise and what to expect from Alabama. But, like, this is the first time. This is the DeBoer era now. They don't lose to Vandy. Like, this is uncharted territory almost. You'd logically anticipate that they go out there with smoke coming out of their ears, ready to prove something to the world. But I almost want to take this and say, generally, it's a good point, because Bama wasn't the only team that got upset last weekend. There was a ton of upsets. And it's a reminder that you're most vulnerable coming off of a big win. Like, I think about, like, the Minnesota Miracle, the Minnesota Gophers upset USC last weekend as well. Think about the Minnesota Miracle, Case Keenum to Stephon Diggs. An emotional victory, and then they get freaking clapped the next week. There is a challenge in how it applies to betting. There is a challenge in having to get up again. There's like a hangover that happens after big emotional victories. The opposite could be true after an emotional loss, because then you can play pissed off, and that's always good when you're on the football field.
The old letdown spot. Okay, we have some massive games going down this weekend. Nothing bigger than Ohio State, Oregon. Both teams in the top 5 on the national championship futures odds board. Both teams undefeated this season. A lot of lopsided wins here for each team for the most part. Ohio State on the road here. They're favored by 3.5, a total of 52.5. So this is the first time all season that Ohio State has been a favorite inside of 17 points. Of course, they've been the favorite in all their games. And this is the first time since October 13th of 2018 that Oregon has been an underdog on their home field. For those keeping score at home, they won outright versus Washington in that game. That, of course, has no bearing on this game whatsoever. But something's got to give here. Who do you like in the big-time heavyweight matchup on Saturday night?
I'll just start with this. I love Ohio State, and it's going to be hard to bet against them, even though my heart in the game later in the season is going to say, give me Michigan, right? It's going to be hard to bet against this team. They are a force to be reckoned with, quite simply. And Oregon's a really good football team. I'm just not ready to call them a force to be reckoned with. What's really interesting about this matchup, though, is the head coaches. You have Dan Lanning and you have Ryan Day. Two highly paid coaches representing two of the biggest brands in college football that have won a ton of games in their career. And yet they've fallen short of the ultimate standard. Dan Lanning's lost to Washington. Ryan Day has lost to Michigan. They both have fallen short of winning the standard of conference titles and national titles. So the pressure of this game on both head coaches is astronomical. Here's the thing that I think is really interesting. Both teams make huge acquisitions at the quarterback and the skill positions this offseason. The game's going to be won and lost in the trenches. The storyline for Oregon this season, Joe, has been their offensive line. They have two great tackles, but through weeks 1 through 3, PFF does like an O-line grade ranking. They were 7th worst in the Power 4. They were really shaky. Now, since then, they've been 8th best, so they've cleaned some things up. The problem is they're going up against a Buckeye defensive line that is getting, this is an absurd stat, they're getting a sack or a quarterback hit on 25% of dropbacks. 1 out of every 4 dropbacks, they are making contact with your quarterback. Dylan Gabriel is not built like Ben Roethlisberger. I have serious, like that could simply decide this game. Ohio State also has the lowest explosive run rate allowed in the FBS. They're not giving anyone anything. So can Oregon drive the ball consistently down the field the way I anticipate Ohio State will be able to? I love Ohio State in this game, clearly, as you can see.
Okay, Ohio State it is. Okay, so Saturday afternoon, big rivalry game. Of course, we have Texas, Oklahoma. Texas favored by 14.5 points, total of 50.5. So the Longhorns are just crushing everybody so far this season. They are undefeated. All of those wins have come by at least 19 points, an average scoring margin of a modest plus 38 here. Oklahoma, their only loss this season came versus a ranked Tennessee team. So can Oklahoma give them a game, or do you think Texas keeps winning big here?
I love Texas just as much as I love Ohio State. And I saw it with my own 2 eyes against my alma mater right here. They came in and freaking clapped them at home. So I just genuinely believe those 2 rosters, like just talent-wise, there's Ohio State and there's Texas, or Texas and Ohio State. And then there's a significant gap across college football. I don't know. You just look from a matchup standpoint. And Texas, Quinn Ewers has been out. In comes Arch Manning. And I know Arch Manning is talented and highly touted as a recruit, but it's looked easy and effortless. And that gives us a clue to how good this team is, that in comes the backup quarterback and nothing changes. They're freaking loaded. Here's the issue. How does Oklahoma slow it down? Well, their secondary is bottom half in terms of pass defense rating. They're giving up a ton of passing yards. This is one of the best receiving corps in college football, including the tight end. So maybe you need to generate some pressure. Their D-line is 7th nationally in pass rush grade, top 10 in sacks. This is the best offensive line in college football in Texas. So I don't know. You have to be able to run the ball versus them. You have to be able to control the clock. But Texas is just like a boxer that just continues to push forward and almost doesn't even feel their opponent. It's going to be tough for anyone to beat Texas this year.
Okay, next up, this looks like a fun one. Number 9, Ole Miss taking on number 13, LSU. Mississippi favored by 3.5 here. Total on the high end, 62.5 here. So Ole Miss rebounded from that Kentucky loss. They ended up beating South Carolina by 24. They've actually gone under in 5 straight games. A bit of a surprise there potentially to some. LSU winning, but not really covering a lot of spreads here. Tight spread in this one. What do you make of the matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss, part of the reason they're going under is that Lane Kiffin offense is about vertical passing and explosive plays. And we thought Jackson Dart had a chance to be in the Heisman combo this year. Last 2 weeks, he's 3 of 16 on passes of 20-plus yards. So will that trend continue? I don't think so. I think that's more of an anomaly. I trust that Jackson Dart is going to get hot again. The problem for the Tigers, this comes at a really, really bad time. They are one of the worst back ends in college football. So statistically, they're giving up yards. Their coverage grade is not great. I think this is the week that Jackson Dart and them get hot. This is going to be fun, though, on the other side of the ball. LSU, I think they got 2 first-round tackles. Like, their tackles are studs. They're going up against an Ole Miss defensive line that's second. This is crazy. Second in yards before contact allowed. So they're hitting players behind the line of scrimmage. And they're third in yards allowed after contact. I mean, after the point of contact, you're going down. You're done. They're the only team that's top 10 in both those categories. Part of the reason they're going under is because their defense is playing really well. So this feels like a get-right week for Ole Miss. I understand the environment and the setting. I like Ole Miss in this matchup.
Okay, last but not least, and we'll get into some best bets. Get your thoughts on the Thursday night football game. Deion Sanders, Colorado Buffaloes, always in the spotlight here. They are coming off their bye. They're coming off a massive upset win. They're hosting Kansas State, also coming off a big win in their own right over Oklahoma State. Kansas State coming off their bye as well. So tightish spread. Looks like it's going to be a competitive game. The Buffaloes are a 4.5-point dog on their home field, total of 56.5. Do you think the Buffaloes can keep rolling here, Jake?
Man, I'll tell you what, just from a matchup standpoint, I think they got a shot because you think about the Nebraska game and what Nebraska did was they pressured Shedeur Sanders. They were suffocating in terms of getting in the backfield and making life uncomfortable. Kansas State, they do not blitz and they do not get organic pressure. You don't want to have Shedeur. You don't want Shedeur Sanders sitting back there all day scanning the defense because he's going to find the holes. That's concerning. What's really fun, though, is, to beat Kansas State, you have to stop the run. They're going to run the ball, quarterback run, multiple running backs. They are going to have a creative run scheme. Colorado, this is what's really, really interesting right now. They're 80th in the FBS in rush yards allowed per game. But PFF has them graded as the 13th best team in terms of run defense. So there's a little bit of discrepancy there. Which team shows up? Can they shut down Kansas State's run game, or are they going to give up a ton of yards? Because if you are playing Shedeur Sanders, the antidote is to run the ball, control the clock, keep them on the sideline. I think that's going to decide this game. Regardless, it's going to be fun. I do think Colorado has a real chance at winning this one.
Okay, let's talk your best bet of the week here in college football. No beating around the bush. You like Washington. You like their money line against Iowa. Why do you like the Huskies here this weekend?
Because they should be undefeated. I mean, they beat themselves versus Washington State. I think they had 16 penalties. They beat themselves versus Rutgers. Couldn't score in the red zone. A normally trusty field goal kicker has been shaky these past few weeks. They should be undefeated. And yet what they showed last week was a changing of the tide. They were 15th in the Big Ten in penalties, 15th in penalty yards allowed per game. They had 2 penalties for 20 yards. So they cleaned it up. Jed Fish had his best game coaching. Steve Belichick, I thought they did a great job of shutting down the obvious Michigan run game. Well, they'll need to do that again versus Iowa. To me, this feels like a game for Washington where they get to decide what kind of season they want to have. They have a chance to be an 8 or 9 win team this season. They have to do it this week. So Iowa's favored at home, I believe. So you can get them at plus odds on the money line. I think Washington finds a way, especially with a veteran quarterback and Will Rogers. He's not going to make the mistakes against the Iowa defense that they rely on to win. I think Washington wins this one outright.
All right, let's talk a little NFL now, then something fun here for the end. Your best bet in the NFL. Good-looking game, I think, down in Dallas. The Lions in town. Lions favored by 3 points. A really odd game these teams played last season against each other. Everyone was expecting a shootout. Dallas ends up winning 20-19, a very controversial ending to that one. But you think the Lions will be able to pick them off this time around? You like them to cover that 3-point spread?
I do. And just let's just set this game up. It's the perfect game for Dan Campbell, gritty Detroit. Bring in your offensive line and your run game. You don't care about the flashy cars or flashing lights. And then you're playing the Cowboys, who are all about the flashy cars and the flashy lights and a expensive quarterback. No. This Lions team is going to run the ball. And the concern for Dallas right now, They're dead last in the NFL in opponent rush EPA. Whoa. 29th in opponent rush success. The Lions offense, meanwhile, is third in rush EPA and second in rush success. Bad formula here. That's going to be that. Can they change that in 1 week against one of the best rushing teams in the league? I don't think so. And I know Dan Campbell is going to stay committed to that run game. I think the Lions, they run the heck out of the ball, and I think they win this one.
Yeah, the Lions offense looked absolutely fantastic last time we saw them a couple weeks ago on Monday Night Football, coming off their bye here as well. Okay, so interesting game tonight, Thursday Night Football. Both teams kind of limping into this one. Very underwhelming start to the season for the 49ers. They're favored by 3.5 points in Seattle against the Seahawks, who are just upset by a very watered-down version of the New York Giants on their home field as well. Total 49.5. That Seattle defense has really crashed back to earth. What do you think of this game tonight?
That loss versus the Giants is really concerning because now I played part of teams that had a lot of success in September, and the lesson I learned is early season success means absolutely nothing. And they played they put a kind of a cupcake schedule there to start the year, and then you're losing to the Giants. It's like, wait a second, who really are you? Meanwhile, it's like the opposite for the Niners, where it's like, hey, one, they've been beat up. They had a Super Bowl run last year, an emotional loss. Like I almost expect them between that and the health to start the season. I expected them to start slow and a little bit less than perfect. What I'm trying to say is I feel like the Niners are a team that's going to continue to trend up, and the Seahawks are a bit of a mystery right now. So for those reasons alone, that's a big reason I like the Niners. Also, Kittle anytime touchdown is something that's real tasty right here. The Seahawks linebackers are allowing 8.9 yards per catch, ninth most in the league, and 133 yards after the catch, which is second most in the league. So Kittle's historically had great games against the Seahawks. I think the Niners win. I think Kittle has a big game as well.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was looking at Kittle over 49.5 receiving yards. He had a really good game against the Ravens last season, who was their defensive coordinator last year, the current head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. So maybe a bit of a connection there.
He has 5 touchdowns in his last 5 versus Seattle as well.
Ooh,
so I don't know if anytime touchdowns going off. I'm just saying.
Yeah, something to take a look at. Okay, so something fun for the end here. You're, of course, an analyst for the Big Ten Network. You're calling games every weekend here. You're on Wisconsin Rutgers this weekend. People who watch this show, they've probably heard me say this before. I'm a self-described broadcasting nerd. That's what I studied in school. That's kind of what I do here, but not to the degree that you're doing it, in the booth calling these games. When I watch sports, Jake, I like to watch them by myself. I don't need people in my ear. I watched a Super Bowl 3 years in a row pretty much by myself now. I like when I'm watching these UFC fights late at night. I like to sit and listen to the commentary. And I know, and I think most people know, you just don't show up and rattle stuff off the top of your head. There's a lot of prep involved. So when you're preparing for one of these games, how intense is that? When does everything begin? Bring us through the process of preparing to call a game.
Yeah, so this is my 3rd year getting into this, and I made a ton of calls to a ton of people, and I was like, man, what should I know about this industry? And like the common denominator was everyone was like, listen, like you have got to prepare. Like never go into the booth expecting you're just going to be able to talk about football. But that's the title of the job, right? Like, yes. But when you think about games, and especially at the college level, this is where I think college is so challenging. I don't want to say the NFL is easy, but like, hey, you and I know the identity of the Chiefs, and we know Pat Mahomes, and we know Kelsey. We know the identity of the Lions and Dan Campbell and Jerry, right? At the college level, like, especially with the transfer portal, these rosters get turned over every single year. The coaches are bouncing around every single year. Teams are volatile, so it's hard to predict trends. And then they rotate a ton of guys. The roster size is double what it is in the NFL. So the amount of prep that goes in is nuts. It's almost like, in high school when you like study for an exam, you memorize all the information, do well on the exam, and then you throw it to the curve the next week because you got a whole new set of information. That's what makes it fun, though, is it's fresh every single week. And the real fun piece of this is there's no feeling like being a player. like preparing all week, practicing, and then making a play in the game, 3rd and 6. They throw me the ball and I move the chains and the crowd goes nuts. Like, that's an exhilarating feeling. It's the same thing in the game when the clock's ticking down in the 4th quarter and I might circle a guy and say, hey, keep an eye on this guy right here. They go to him and move the chains or make a big touchdown. Like, preparation meets opportunity. And I get that same butterfly and excitement feeling from being prepared for a call. I'm so lucky to be in this industry because, you know, once I was done playing, I really was like, man, will I ever get that feeling again? It's like a freaking drug almost, the high you get. And now I have a career that I can do for the next 40 years that, you know, I really enjoy.
Now, is there somebody that you watch, that you admire, that you try to maybe, I don't know, pattern yourself after a little bit? I imagine you watch and you listen quite intently to some of the guys who've been doing it for a while, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Joe Klatt and he's been great. Like, he's spent hours on the phone with me, helping, you know, guide me a little bit. The lead Fox Sports analyst. Of course, you look up to Kirk Herbstreit, Todd Blackledge as well. I think Todd does just a great job. And then, you know, what's always interesting, man, is looking on social media to see people's opinions on broadcasters. I love Chris Collinsworth. I love Troy Aikman, man. Greg Olson should be a lead somewhere. Like, Greg Olson's freaking phenomenal. So I don't know. I really don't. There's no one I don't really enjoy. I got an appreciation for the art.
Yeah, a lot of people killing Bob Costas, saying he's lost his fastball. I love listening to Costas call MLB game. I do understand some of the criticism, though, from last night, the Yankees-Royals game there. We'll look forward to that series.
Just be yourself, though. You know what I mean? Just be yourself. Bob Costas is unapologetically himself, and I think at the end of the day, we can all appreciate that.
Yeah, you got to bring a little bit of personality. That's what people liked out of Tom Brady a couple of weeks ago when he was calling the Buccaneers game there. Okay, Jake. We're going to leave it at that, though. Great chat again today. Best of luck with those picks you gave us, and best of luck with your work on the call of the game here for the Big Ten Network. We'll look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Thank you. I mean, I simply couldn't pick Rutgers this week because I'm calling the game, so I can't pick against one team. So that's why we're riding with the Huskies. So come on, Huskies. Bring it home, baby. Good to see you, Joe.
Always ethical. There we go. Thanks, Jake. All right, 60% of the chat is with me, siding with me for the 49ers to cover the spread here, -3.5. As I pointed out, they have really had the Seahawks number. Seahawks really exposed over the last couple of games there. So, yeah, very interesting looking game Thursday Night Football. Let's recap the picks that we gave out off the top of the show here. So, I like the 49ers to cover 3.5. I think this is a good game for them to get the train back on the tracks. I think it's going to be a fun game. I do think Seattle will have some success offensively as well here. As a result, I'm going to go over 49.5 points. Tanner Bybee on the bump here for the Guardians, over 3.5 hits allowed. And Garrett Cole, get out there and earn that money, bud. Over 4.5 strikeouts. Get your team to the ALCS. Jingles, he likes prop for each quarterback. Brock Purdy over 12.5 rushing yards. Geno Smith under 36.5 pass attempts. And he likes the Guardians to extend their series to 5 games against the Detroit Tigers. Okay, that does it for the Thursday edition of Before You Bet. But we're going to be right back with you guys tomorrow for the Mega Football Friday edition of the show. Brad Powers is going to be leading off the show, getting into all the big games in college football, some of his best bets as well. We're going to have an avalanche of picks for the NFL, Major League Baseball players. You're not going to want to miss it. So thank you to both of my guests for joining today. Thank you to producer Mick for producing. Thank you to BetMGM for sponsoring the show. Thank you to the viewers for tuning in. Best of luck with all your bets tonight, guys. We will catch you again tomorrow. Woo!